Lack of access to assets, lack of access to financing, limited training, gender-neutral government policy, and time constraints due to heavy domestic responsibilities are 5 major constraints that experts have identified to limit women's productivity and full inclusion into the agricultural economy. The African Development Bank's Economic Empowerment of African Women through Equitable Participation in Agricultural Value Chains report highlights 3 broad areas for action that could begin to address the specific constraints women face in each focus country. These are grow the number of large-scale agribusiness entrepreneurs by providing access to financing and training and improving regional and global market links. Make sure women are remunerated by setting them up as co-owners, improving productivity and providing training in core business skills. Increase women's access to niche markets by providing and marketing women-only products.
When we look around at the kinds of programs that are being funded around the continent on agribusiness, we have to be very explicit in terms of how we design these programs. We have programs that focus on access to finance. We have programs that build the capacity of women to engage in agribusiness. We have mentoring programs. We have programs that are linking women to markets. It's what Her Excellency is calling the many tentacles that we find in agribusiness. And what we have learned through the research that we fund is any single one of those is not going to work, because it's like a conveyor belt. If you give women funding for their agribusinesses, one of the key determinants we have found of success of women's agribusinesses is the link to markets. How do you then link women-led businesses to global markets, to continental markets, or to regional and local markets? Just one piece of work we have recently funded in Kenya. When you just give young people or young women funding and training, if you have 100 of them, 57 of them are likely to succeed. 57 out of 100. If you combine that funding, training, mentoring, and link to markets, 93% of them are likely to succeed in their businesses. So we have to take some of these lessons, that it's not just about the funding, it's how you take women through that journey of growing their businesses. The second thing that we have found, these linkages to global markets, they're not automatic. We're leaving women to navigate through all these barriers by themselves. So a couple of years ago, we found this organization. It's called We Connect International. And their main business is taking women-led businesses. They have to be 51% owned by women, or they have to be sole women owned. And they register them, they mentor them, they train them, they open them up to global markets. Right now, they have about 600 women-led businesses in their registry. They've connected 60 of them to the global supply chains. These businesses are now generating $127 million annually, with about 5,000 employees. These 60 women-owned, women-led businesses that are now connected to global value chains. So it's not enough to just provide the financing.
And more so, experts are saying that there is a need to drop policies which are less favorable to women, focusing on the appreciation of their role as producers of wealth and strengthening the network of public services in rural areas, including health, education and welfare services, as well as establishing policies that combat the difficulties that prevent rural women from being protected against the effect of climate change.
Unless we have deliberate effort, unless there is deliberate policy, unless we take care of their issues, there is no model which is going to be specific to women apart from looking at the challenges, the constraints of women. Because women, if they have to set up a processing plant, they need resources like a man. They need inputs, finance, they need technology, they need to access all that. But the fact that women have all these other encumbrances, the constraints, the challenges they face, the multiple roles, all those they have to be looked into. So each and every design of a project at a certain stage, they have to look at what are the constraining factors. What are those strategic factors which we have to look at in order to bring women on board?
The training of rural women is very important, especially for the adoption of modern agricultural techniques that are tailored to local conditions and that use natural resources in a sustainable manner, with a view to achieving economic development without degrading the environment. It requires the dissemination of the results of research carried out by experts, including those on agroecological techniques, with a view to increasing rural women's production levels.
We had to come up and really advocate, propagate for women. So even in agribusiness, this has to happen. And it will not take the men only, the men will do a little bit. For the gender part to be part and parcel of the mainstream in the policies, the percentages, many countries have percentages of 30, of 40. We must have so many women in this, so many in that. It has to happen also in agribusiness. Unless we do that, then they are not going to be focused on, because they have challenges which are specific to women. If a woman would like to have, say, access to fertilizer or other inputs, she is not going to travel miles and miles. Men sleep on the bus and do this. You know what's happening in our rural areas in Africa. So we must have these inputs nearer to where the women are, where they are going to invest. So we have to look at all these aspects which are going to facilitate the woman to be part and parcel of the agribusiness sector. The Davos meeting brought out a number of factors. The IFC has also done a study, a very big one, on women and agribusiness. All these are very vivid. If you look at the percentage of women in agriculture, in Africa, they are between 60 and 80. But globally, they are about 40. You can never leave out those if you are to really develop the agribusiness sector. And it has to be all-inclusive.
Giving support to rural women is a way of breaking the vicious cycle that leads to rural poverty and to the expansion of slums in the cities, where the poor get poorer. Development strategies should consider rural women as the epicenter, paying special attention to their social skills, both within and outside the agriculture sector. Experts also argue that policies established for the benefit of rural women should be tested and reassessed by the beneficiaries, using them as a social learning tool and not as individuals on whom political authority is exercised. The agricultural sector provides various entry points for women along its value chain, either as primary producers, processors, input suppliers, commercial buying agents, and market linkage providers. Women are thereby challenged to be value-adding in their disposition from now on, and to look at the agric sector because of the possibility of return on investment, which is said to be immensely high. That's our program for the day. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.